Hey guys, Crownie here, and in the next few minutes I'm going to show you how a pro player plays and dominates with Zeri. So first of all, what type of champion is Zeri? Zeri is a mobile hyper carry that can kite whole teams and pop off and get quadra kills, pentakills. If you enjoy high APM champions, being hyper mobile, then you will definitely enjoy Zeri, as she's unique. She's the only champion that has her auto tech on a skill shot. She scales pretty well, has quite good survivability, and teaches you very important fundamentals of AD carry such as spacing and kiting. Zeri essentially wants to play front to backs while she can stack her ultimate passive to get insane amounts of movement speed, and she can use that movement speed to reposition. Combined with her wall dash, she is one of the most slippery AD carries in the game. She doesn't really stand still auto-attacking. She constantly has to move. The longer and the more chaotic the fights are, the better it is for her. What are Zeri's weak points? I would say Zeri's weak points is playing against poke or being outranged or kited. As I said, she's hyper reliant on her ultimate because it's such a massive steroid. So if she's kited in fights, it makes it much harder for her to play the game. And if your ult runs out, you are essentially half of the champion that you are with your ultimate. And coupled with the fact that she doesn't really have a lot of all-in potential in lane pre-6 is also a big issue for her if she plays into like a Caitlyn or into a double mage where she just can't all-in and she just has to farm. Zeri synergizes the best with enchanter supports like Yuumi, Lulu. Essentially give her like attack speed and AD and movement speed so she can stick on enemies more and deal more damage. But she's also pretty good with champions like Nautilus, Rakan that set her up in teamfights. Her worst pairings in lane are obviously mage supports. They don't really offer her anything, and she also doesn't really have much to play with them. She can't really follow up on a Zyra or a Xerath or anything like that. Definitely don't pick her with mages. Skill order on Zeri. Most of the time you max Q first and then E and then W, and obviously put points in ult whenever possible. But there is some instances or some Zeri players who like putting points in her W to have a bit more like long range poke in lane, and people don't really expect it. I personally don't like this playstyle. It also got nerfed with the mini rework she got like a few patches ago, but you can play it if you want. The biggest mistake people do on Zeri is, I would say, they use her E too aggressively in lane and then they just get all in and die. It's very important when you play mobile champions to try to save your dash for as long as possible until enemy commits their skills, and then you can use it aggressively. The other mistake I would say is ultimate usage. I think many Zeri players either use it too fast. Let's say I use it at a moment and then it just gets kited out by them flashing out, or they use a spell to disengage and then again I'm so useless after. So you need to really be patient. When I was watching Ruler VODs in 2023 when he was on JDG, he was super patient on Zeri. He would always wait until enemy committed, they were deep in the fight, boom, then he ults and cleans up the fight. Zeri item build, I would say that you have two options. You have Hex Optics Rush, Stormrazor or Yuntal. I would say Hex Optics is the most standard because it's the easiest to build, but if you have 1.3k you can buy BF Sword, you can go for Stormrazor or Yuntal. I prefer Stormrazor between the two, but Yuntal is okay if you really want a stat stick. I just think Stormrazor is better because it synergizes so well with her kit, giving her the movement speed that she needs, giving her attack speed is just perfect. After that, I would say you go Runans 80% of the games. I would say if they have 2 or 3 melees, you should always go Runans, and even if they don't really have melees, they have range champs, you can still go Runans because it synergizes so well with your Q. But you can also go Phantom Dancer as it's such an amazing stat stick for her, giving her 10% movement speed. After that you go into Infinity Edge or Last Whisper based on how much armor they have. Many times Last Whisper Fairy Dish is better because keep in mind LDR increases all of your damage, so increases the magic damage in your kit as well. After that you got the item you didn't build, so you go Infinity Edge or Last Whisper as I mentioned. And then after that you have quite a bit of liberty. You can go Bloodthirster, you can go Endless Hunger, you can go Guardian Angel, you can go QSS. Obviously always recommend a defensive item at that point because you're so fed that obviously with 100% crit you can kill whole teams, and staying alive is most important. So I would say something like BTGA or BTQSS or GAQSS, or as I said, Endless Hunger. If you really want massive amounts of sustain with BT and Endless Hunger, you will literally heal to full in like 2 auto attacks. Runes or Zeri are quite interesting. Everybody always plays Lethal Tempo, but I actually think with her mini rework, Conquer is better. Why? Okay, first of all, her passive is the same range as her auto attack now, so getting Conquer stacks is easier in lane because you can just do right click Q or Q right click, and the right click gives you 2 stacks. They nerfed her attack speed to AD conversion, so Little Tempo is slightly worse on her. Conqueror just feels really nice. I urge you to try it. Then you can go Alacrity or Bloodline based on if you want early game fighting, you can go Alacrity because you want the early stats from Alacrity, and if you want more scaling, you go Bloodline. And based on that, you can also decide if you go Doran's Bow or Doran's Blade. Doran's Bow is more of an early fighting item because it gives you attack speed and it gives you 2 pots to really fight early, while Doran's Blade just gives you 80 HP and more survivability later, but you will be missing some attack speed. And what I actually like to do is on the second row of shards, I take movement speed instead of the 9 adaptive. All in all, it makes you only lose 5 AD, which you compensate with Conqueror, but you have more movement speed to have more Conqueror stacks. Especially if you have an easy lane, you should go for this full scaling setup and it will feel amazing later, especially if you go Stormrazor. And secondary runes, I think the 2 best are either Resolve or Inspiration. In Inspiration, you go like Triple Tonic and Cashback. You can also go Cosmic instead of Triple Tonic if you feel like your flash cooldown will be super important in the game. But the champion is mobile enough to not really need like flash to survive if you play well. And you can go Resolve if, again, you feel like the game will be like free scaling and you can go Overgrowth and stuff to have more HP and conditioning. But I feel like Inspiration is better from my personal preference. I feel like Cashback has a lot of value in the game and can't really go wrong with a level 6 Triple Tonic all-in, especially now that they buffed her early game. That would be my recommendation. How to play lane phase with Zeri. Okay, there's a few key things with Zeri, okay? Zeri level 1 with Doran's Bow is actually one of the strongest AD carries in the game. You just start full hitting the wave and like queuing it, right click, Q, right click, and just trying to get as much push as possible. Or if you can free hit, for example, a melee support, you actually deal a lot of damage level 1, especially because they buffed the base damage of your right click level 1. Try to look for short trades with Q auto into get out, or like W from a bush, or try to W a wall. Pre-6, Zeri isn't really super good at all-ins unless she gets a lot of free hits and a lot of stacks on her Conqueror or Little Tempo. So you want to essentially play safe, look for a good base. One of the advantages Zeri has is she can E back to lane, so you can just base, buy a cool, E back to lane, you will always be in time. You can always use this to cheat tempo. As I said, Zeri is one of the strongest skirmishes in the game as long as she can hit for free, or as long as she finds angles to hit enemies. The main thing is to try to play teamfights front to back and be very patient with your ult. Don't play her like an assassin unless you're like super fed and you're ganking somebody on side lane. Just hit the first target, be patient with your ult, always try to keep your ult stacks up. Don't use your E too aggressively, be very patient, and you will always be able to clean up teamfights.
That is a very isolated Sheo. How long can he survive for? BDS going to try and collapse on towards him. He comes back out with Volt Breaker. Now Larson is to get it down towards the bottom side. The slicing mouse once again. Merman coming in, but Cop hasn't had the time to auto. Already Nuke has fallen though. And Koi have found a perfect fight in the river. But Crownie's still full HP. He's dodging. He's dipping. He's diving. It's all Crownie. But call him king. Because he has been crowned with a pentakill. Crownie pops off.
Continuing my Zeri video by showing you some tricks you can do on her, some wall jumps, some W angles, and some mechanics you can do on her. Let's say enemy is trying to push here. I wait here for my E to come back, right? And then I gank them from this angle, or it's the same, like, and then you're here ready to gank them like this, right? Okay, the next one is this one, which is pretty important. I did this in like a EU Masters game. You can do it this way from the torch, or if you are like a bit behind, you need to be a bit like into the wall, like on this like leaf thing. You do it like this, or here you need to be on this leaf thing. This one is a bit harder, I think. Like you see, sometimes you can like mess it up a little bit, but essentially you need to be like 30 degrees into the wall, like this. You see, on the torch it's much easier. If I'm here, I can have to angle it inside a bit. It's very useful to escape. And the other one is using your W. It's good to use it like this. When they like can sidestep, right? They don't have much space to move. Or you can use it while Wing on the wall. You can also do it reverse. You can also flash. Let's say you're like, I don't know, somebody's here. There's like a dummy here. I'm like E. Boom, I turn it insta. Okay, those are the EW ones. Now for Q and R. You can Q flash to make it like instant. You can also R flash. The fastest combo is probably like that, right? And then you like E chase W or something, whatever, right? But the most damage is probably R flash Q auto, essentially, and then you E. Now, another Zeri combo. You turn on auto attack, and then you do, I will show you. Let's say somebody's face checking a bush, okay? A dummy is coming here. Or let's say your Nautilus hit a hook. You do W, auto Q E Q. You see? Instant. Essentially, it allows Zeri to short dash, because for some reason this setting just cancels her E animation. So you get 2 Qs instantly. For example, look. It's very good to hit towers with this, because you get 2 Qs instantly. So essentially you eliminate this part. So again, auto Q, Q, and then you just start Qing. A lot of damage, a lot of damage. So those are essentially the Zeri tricks.